Welcome to class. We're going to start off with a quiz for week 2. So you're going to, first of all, you can either pause this video and work through the quiz, or you can print off the copy of the quiz that I'll have under the video link, and you can use it that way. So the way you're going to take this quiz is that number 1 says to delete, take this oops out. I want you to remember the markings that we learned last week and correct each number. Each question tells you exactly what symbol to use. You just have to decide where to put it. So you need to delete out the word oops. So just show how we would do that if you were the grader or the editor. Number 2, insert means to add something that should here. Ooh, you can tell right there that there's the word be that is missing. Should be here. So insert it there and show me how to do that. Next, we're going to move on to our sniglet of the week. The sniglet is Gooptopia or Guptopia. It's the two words guppy and utopia combined. I chose this in honor of my nieces who take care of many fish. It's a noun that means the phony decor in an aquarium designed to fool fish into thinking they're in an underwater paradise. So another sniglet taken from Rich Hall's book, When Sniglets Ruled the Earth. A sniglet is any word that doesn't appear in the dictionary but should. So I hope you get to use the word Guptopia soon in your everyday life. Maybe you can come up with your own sniglet. Next, we're going to move on to our Shakespeare quotation. The world's mine oyster comes from The Merry Wives of Windsor, another play by Shakespeare. This is a quotation you may not have heard often, but you will hear it, you will see it if you start to look for it. I chose one that may be something a little more uncommon for you right now, and it has come to mean an idiom that means anything is yours, the whole world is yours. Next, we're going to move on to our proverb of the day. Proverbs 28:13 says, "Whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy." Proverbs 28:13. This verse is very similar to what we had last week in that whoever conceals or hides his transgressions or his sin will not do well. But he or she who confesses, that means agrees with God, tells God, and forsakes them, leaves them, will obtain mercy. The only way to deal with your sin is to confess and to forsake it. Don't hide it. Don't cover it up. Don't blame someone else. The writing concept we're going to talk about today has to do a little bit with covering up. And I think you'll see the connection. All right, so we're going to begin talking about our topic here. If you've had any of my classes before, you know that I like to have you keep a running list of good writing characteristics. So if this is your first time, make sure you designate a piece of paper just for this list. We'll keep it all year. You can add to it in future years. These are good writing characteristics. The one we're going to focus on today is the one that is between the quotation marks. I'm going to add a star beside it. Avoid passive voice sentences. You can add the part in the parentheses. We'll talk about that here in a second. But the main instruction, the main rule I want you to remember is to avoid passive voice sentences. Now, maybe you need a refresher. It may have been a long summer for you. We're going to do a quick review. Passive voice is when the subject does not do the action. We're going to look at some sentences down here below. Notice there's a P and an A. P stands for passive and A stands for active. Let's look at the active example. It says Sarah broke the lamp. Sarah is the subject, broke is the verb, and what did she break? The lamp. That is an excellent, strong sentence. In your writing, most of your sentences need to be active voice. However, you can look at the passive voice version above it. In this case, the lamp is the subject and was broken. The lamp didn't do the breaking, but someone or something broke the lamp. This is our passive. And the lamp is the subject, and it was broken. Passive voice verb. This you might use when you don't know who broke the lamp, or maybe you intentionally want to cover something up. We could add by Sarah, because we know from the second sentence that Sarah did the breaking. I like to think of the Dr. Seuss book here, when the kids were left at home in the Cat in the Hat, and the mom left them home alone, and all kinds of chaos happened. This might be how the cat would respond if the mom walked in and said, "Who broke the lamp?" "Oh, the lamp was broken." Intentionally being ambiguous. We have another example. Another time we might use passive voice is when we want to keep the subject of the story or the paragraph as the focus. So the first example we'll look at would be the active voice. The lightning struck the house. Lightning is the subject, and struck is the verb. And what did it strike but the house? A good time to use this would be if I was writing an essay or a paragraph about lightning. But then the next one is the passive voice. This is where I have the house as a subject. The house was struck is the passive verb, and by lightning is the object, is the prepositional phrase with lightning as the object of the preposition. We would prefer the lightning struck the house. Now, if I were writing an essay about my house, my cute little house that sat on a hill, and my house was very old, but it had lots of wonderful memories, but one day the house was struck by lightning. In that case, passive voice might be acceptable because I want to keep the house as the subject. The subject of the sentence is the most powerful position. Just having a noun in that place sets it as the most important place. So in that case, I may want to include a passive voice sentence so that the subject remains the focus if the whole paragraph is about the house. So as you can see, you can have a passive or active version of the same sentence, and though essentially they mean the same thing, the emphasis is different, and one might hint at ambiguity or intentional covering up. Ambiguity is a fancy way for saying confusing, like a mystery. You might want to keep that a mystery. So, but for the sake of our writing this semester, I really want you to avoid writing passive voice if at all possible. In fact, I think you could go all year without using passive voice, except for in the assignment that I'm giving you this week. Okay, so your homework assignment for this week, your first assignment is to write 5 passive voice sentences and 5 active voice sentences that correlate, very similar to what we just did. As you see, you have the active, Sarah broke the lamp, and the passive, the lamp was broken by Sarah. And then you have the active, lightning struck the house, and the passive, the house was struck by lightning. So your job is going to be to come up with 5 sets or 10 total sentences, 5 passive, 5 active, and you get to do them in any order. That is your first assignment for 10 points. Your second assignment is to write a simple whodunit style paragraph using passive voice as needed. Whodunit is kind of a funny way of saying a mystery. Who did it? And only use passive voice when you need it. You don't have to use it throughout the whole thing, but it is acceptable to use it. With this, you need to include a heading with your name, your date, your assignment, your title. It could even just be, who broke the lamp? At least 5 sentences, and it needs to be typed and turned in on time to your teacher or your parent by the next class. So as you can see, I numbered the requirements, and a tip for this assignment: choose a real life thing that happened while a parent or a sibling was gone, and then write it from his or her perspective as they walk in and discover, Dr. Seuss style. You can leave it as a mystery and save it for your end of year newsletter if you want. That could make it fun. Who ate the last donut, or who broke the window? Make sure that each of these things is turned into your parent for editing, and that if you have any questions, you make sure to ask them. All right, parents, just some wrap-up information for you and your student. For last week, if they completed the assignments, then they will get a 9 out of 9 for each error, for correcting the errors, 1 for each error, and a 9 out of 9 for turning in a clean copy and for implementing each of the corrections. So that would be 2 separate grades, each 9 points total. And then for the quiz today, he or she will receive the correct number out of 10, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. And then for today's assignment, he or she should receive 10 possible points for completing the first assignment on time, 1 for each sentence. And then you need to edit and save for next week. And when you edit, you're just looking for things that you know your student's responsible for. And then 7 possible points for the second assignment. All right, here are the correct answers. You can pause at the end of this quiz so you can see what your student's looking for. Each example should be pretty straightforward. The last one may be slightly confusing. Be flexible if you think it's close.